Do 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 do. Okay. You're a little laggy, but the recording will be better.
It will.
Yeah, so how Riverside works is it like live. So like after you record it, it actually uses the local feed from each computer.
Oh, yeah. I always have, dude. I always have issues with Riverside. I mean, your connection has to be very good for Riverside. Your internet
Yeah,
connection
yeah,
has to be great.
yeah. Mine's okay.
So
I think it's on your end.
yeah, I've always had difficulty uploading Riverside after, just because I don't know. Like even when I take my phone into town, it still takes forever.
Right.
So I don't. I mean, it is what it is.
It'd be what to do. All
Hmm.
right. Let's see.
So people can.
Let's see if we have any questions. See what motility agent isn't effective as coffee. Well, let's try to keep the questions to Valence specific, guys. And then they're already asking about coffee enemas.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so what's new? How's the Valence world?
Um. Yeah, man. So there's definitely some updates that we're doing, and so anytime that we do an update, technically it takes, depending on which product it is, because each product sells differently, or the quantity. Um, but generally, it's probably around 3 to 6 months out before you actually, are able to try a new version of our products. Um, just because that's how we have to order, and we just can't,
Right.
run the, so looking at, so at this moment, it looks like the new NAK up will probably hit the market before the others. So right now we updated CalMag Fusion. We updated Ballflow Plus, but those are a good six months out, maybe.
Right.
Um, we did improve Zinc Matrix Pro a bit, so we added two new forms of zinc, um,
So does
and
it
that's
have seven?
probably
So the zinc has it's like 7 forms now.
so now. So currently, it does have seven forms, but the
Right.
next one will have
Oh wow,
nine
nine.
forms. Um,
That's
yeah,
wild.
but the dose is it's staying around the same. Um,
Right.
it's staying around the same, around 45 milligrams, I believe. Um, and it's two capsule serving size, so you can split that in half. Um, which is basically, I think, the equivalence of, I haven't looked at Endomed Zinc in a long time. I don't know how theirs is divided up. I thought it was like 22.5
It is. Yeah, it's like
if you just
it's
take,
22.
yeah. So we're sticking around there. Maybe in the future we might do like a three capsule serving size, just because you can split it up morning, afternoon, dinner, one capsule each, and you're getting around between 15 and 20 milligrams, depending on where we keep it at.
So
So technically,
one capsule will still be 20 milligrams or around there.
it would be around 15 to 20. Ideally, I want to keep it. So if we're doing a 45 milligram split three ways, that's 15 milligrams. So ideally, I do want to keep it at 15 milligrams because um, it's actually more tolerable this way if people split it up 3 times a day because we're using such good forms of zinc and highly bioavailable. So many clinical studies do show that some of these advanced zinc forms are like almost 3x more bioavailable than, let's say, zinc sulfate or et cetera. So if you're taking 50 milligrams of zinc sulfate, you probably only need like 15 milligrams of zinc picolinate to match that. So there's a huge reduction there when you're using certain forms. So it just goes, it's just more efficient, in terms of absorption. And you can get away with, doing a lower dose um, at one time. And then if you need more, you can just split it up. You can take it 3 times a day. Ideally, that's where I want to head.
Mhm.
Uh, but there's always there's for some reason there's usually some confusion when you're changing things like this, and people are used to just doing 1 or 2 caps a day, and now they got to do 3 caps a day, and so now they have to figure out the math of like, well, what's 1 capsule? How many milligrams is this? So there's a little bit of retraining with their practitioners, but I do think that the benefits outweigh this because you're just making it more tolerable for the person, split 3 times a day,
Right.
if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Do you still have your clients take the supplements 3 times a day?
So that kind of depends. Depends on which supplement, and some people are just a little more sensitive. So, um, and even children, and, if they're at school or something, they may just do it twice a day.
Yeah.
Um, and I try not to have people take their supplements too late in the day because some people like eating too late in the day. So um, that's not ideal. So it just depends on what someone's eating habits are, what where they're at there. Because ideally, you don't want to take the supplements, like the entire spectrum of supplements, at like 7 or 8 p.m.
Yeah. I can tell you what, like one of the major changes I've made with the Valence supplements compared to Intimate is that I only do my default is twice a day now. Just
Yeah,
because, well, I tell people one of the ones that they can take 3 times a day, especially if they want, is just take like one bioflow per meal.
yeah,
But the rest of them, my default is 2, just because it's hard to expect people to honestly to be taking supplements 3 times a day. People forget they have busy lives, and I feel like 2, it's like kind of a nice in between where you're getting most of the benefits of 3 still, but it's just a lot
hmm
easier for people to manage that. Does that make sense?
yeah, true. And
And with the Valence
yeah,
supplements, it's easier to do 2 instead of 3 because they're significantly more powerful than the Intimate ones.
yeah,
So I feel like 3 is not as needed. People can still take 3, of course,
yeah,
but I just feel like it simplifies things.
yeah. It's a little more. It's definitely more potent when you do that over, like, let's say, a month. You know, because there's going to be some additional effect whenever you're considering, like, I'm doing this every day, and so there's just a buildup there in terms of anything, like any sort of detoxification. So yeah, I mean, it is wise, especially with valence, to do something like once or twice a day, and then maybe, I mean, it depends on how sensitive someone is. If someone's
Yeah.
very sensitive, then maybe after a month they can increase the dose or something per day, or et cetera. Just because ironically, the lower the amount of a certain mineral or vitamin you take, the more that is absorbed at times. So if you're taking, like, for example, if you're taking 200, 300 milligrams of magnesium at one time, it's actually better to split it up. And so let's say you only do like 50 milligrams at one time. Your body
Mhm.
actually tolerates that better than doing that high dose at
Right.
one time.
Right.
Um, and so So this is why I do like, in some cases, um, increasing the serving size, such as zinc, such as maybe, depending on how strong NAK up is, we may convert that to 2. Um, just because it's just, I mean, your body is still going to heal very well, even if you're taking a lower dose of something that is just very high in bioavailability. Um, so yeah, it's not really about the dose itself.
Right, for sure. So that's a good segue. Let's go ahead and talk about the changes to the new NAK app. I know one of the major changes that you made previously was you lowered the P5P, which I actually liked. I was
Yeah.
skeptical. I was skeptical of changing it in the beginning, but I actually really like the new NAK app. I do think it's better. It's a little less
We're
stimulating, and
actually,
it's more like euphoric. I feel like, so I do like that.
we're actually,
What are the changes to the new one?
so we actually did go back up on the NAK, or the P5P.
How much did you go back up to?
So it's at 8 milligrams now.
Oh, 8?
So the reason behind this is, yeah, 8. So the reason behind this is, um, basically, when you start to rearrange the ratios a bit, especially with manganese.
Mm-hmm.
We did lower the manganese, but when you change the ratio between, let's say, manganese, copper, or zinc,
Mm-hmm.
what can kind of stabilize this in terms of boosting the NAK ratio,
Mm-hmm.
or improving like the sodium potassium bump. But also, you have to look at the immune response. And so, getting into the nitty gritty a bit, some people are very sensitive to NAK up, or even lymph for that matter, because they have such significant immune dysregulation. So
Mm-hmm.
their immune response is just fucked up in certain ways. They may have very low cortisol. So oxidizers, even though they have a low NAK ratio, they have very low cortisol. So this impacts their pro-inflammatory to anti-inflammatory cytokine ratio a little bit. So let's say you try to stimulate the immune response in these individuals. Well, they have low cortisol. So you can't stimulate the immune response without increasing their cortisol production. Um, and so this is where NAK up is really strong for people, because they have they already have significant hormone dysregulation. They have an aberrant immune response, to where they may actually have high pro-inflammatory cytokines, even though they're in oxidation, even though they have a low sodium or a low NAK ratio. So it gets a little wacky sometimes. Um, but P5, so when you raise the P5P level, this actually kind of balances the immune response in terms of the Th1, Th2, levels. Because P5P, it supports the kynurenine pathway, which helps to balance the immune response. Um, and so some people have a lot of inflammation, even though they have low NK ratio. And so when you're high dosing certain minerals, well, you're stimulating that immune response. You're stimulating a little bit of inflammation. And so someone may feel worse because they have significant immune dysregulation. So just to kind of make it a little easier to understand, P5P just kind of balances the immune response in a certain way. Like when you're doing high levels of manganese, I'll say that some people are way too sensitive to manganese to do high dose manganese, because manganese stimulates the immune response in certain ways. They even thought about adding it to vaccines just because of how well it stimulates the immune response.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it actually can encourage the release of inflammasome within the macrophages. So you're essentially increasing the immune response in certain ways, which some people don't need because they already have dysregulated hormone levels, low cortisol. So you kind of have to improve other aspects of their health before they can actually tolerate higher levels of certain minerals.
And for those of you who don't know, P5P, what we're referring to, is basically just an activated form of B6.
Yeah, so to get into that, I don't like supplementing pyridoxine, which is pyridoxine hydrochloride, which is what a lot of supplement companies use. I mean, I'm not trying to, name names here, but yeah, pyridoxine is the most common, I would say. P5P is what you would call the active form.
Right.
But when you take pyridoxine, so relating that to diet, plant foods are primarily pyridoxine, animal foods are primarily P5P. Um, Pyridoxine, on the other hand, for your body to use it, it has to convert it in the liver, which needs it's sort of like a zinc ATP complex. So in order to convert pyridoxine, your body is depending on the availability of ATP and zinc and other substrates or cofactors. So this isn't always working very well in people. So that's why just take P5P. It doesn't build up in a toxic way like pyridoxine does. It's sort of like with folic acid. The synthetic folic acid they put in food. Um, this can lead to unmetabolized folic acid, which can kind of block receptors, um, and gets a little toxic. So the same thing can happen with pyridoxine. This is why you don't want to take high levels of pyridoxine. Um, some people may be able to get away with it if they're extremely well nourished, but I mean, most people that come to HTMA, they have poor liver function. They have all these health issues. So why would you give them something that they have to convert to even use it?
Right. So Daniel asks, can too much vitamin B6 cause toxicity in people? Or is it just a matter of it being in the active form? Well, even in the active form, anything can be toxic if you take too much. But the active form definitely helps a
So I
lot
mean,
because it doesn't build up in the liver the same way, right?
yeah, so I mean, I would have to go off clinical studies on this. If you're taking more than 100 milligrams of something per day for a long length of time, then yeah, you can run into toxicity symptoms.
Right.
But I have not seen any sort of clinical data or anything in regards to the dose that we're using every day. I haven't seen anything like that, and it gets a little more complicated because, well, you're on a mineral balancing protocol. So you're taking a lot of stuff together and you're detoxing in certain ways that can mimic B6 toxicity. Um,
Right.
so it does get a little complicated. And yeah, I mean, kind of, yeah. So, I mean, I don't really think that's an issue unless you're doing very high dose
Yeah, for sure.
continuously and perhaps by itself.
All right, another question. Would you expect any reactions when switching from inactive to active form of B6? Yeah, I mean, part of mineral balancing, right, is that detox reactions happen. So if you're switching to a more powerful form of the B6 and all of a sudden you're raising that NAK ratio for the first time, maybe, yeah, you can definitely get detox symptoms.
Yeah, I mean, there's it's hard to avoid any sort of reactivity. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, and that's one reason why we increased the 8 milligrams, because you have to understand how P5P is even manufactured or even stabilized. P5P isn't as stable as people think. So you know, technically, you're not getting the full 8 milligrams in some
Oh, does it
cases.
does it oxidize a little?
Well, I would. I mean, it just becomes a little inactive.
Right.
Um,
Right. Yeah.
just because that's with any, that can be with a lot of vitamins. It's really
Yeah.
hard to
Vitamin
stabilize.
vitamin C is a big one too. Like people don't like
Yeah,
when people think they're getting all this vitamin C from like store bought orange juice. Most of the vitamin C
yeah,
is oxidized away.
yeah.
Yeah, you're
So
just drinking. You're
yeah,
just
I mean,
drinking sugar.
sure.
You're just drinking sugar water.
Yeah, so
You know?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's one of those things to where, you're taking 8 milligrams, even if it's not oxidized, even if it's not, inactive, you're still only going to absorb so much at one time. But I would say P5P, a lot of people do absorb P5P, at full dose. Even if it goes up to maybe greater than 50 milligrams, someone's going to absorb that, most of that right away.
Right.
Um, Unlike, certain minerals or something. But yeah, I mean, I don't. I think P5P is the one thing that kind of stabilizes or balances out NAK up or limpicament, just because how it's involved in the kynurenine pathway, neurotransmitters, immune function. P5P is just, it's, dude, it impacts so many parts of the body at once
Hmm.
that this is why some people do get detox reactions pretty quickly in some cases.
Right. So yeah, so with the P5P, let's see, the first version of NAK was what, 5 milligrams?
Yeah, so it was well, actually it was 10 milligrams.
Okay,
The very first one, 10 milligrams.
and then you went down to 5, and then you went down to 2, and now you're going back up to 10 or 8,
So we're going back up to 8 just because
and then
um
you're lowering the manganese by what, like half or something?
so we're more lowering the manganese to 2 milligrams. Uh
How much was it before?
and 3.
Oh,
So
so
we
it's
went
just
from 5, 3. Yeah, we were at 5, 3, then 2.
okay.
Um but
Interesting.
personally I don't think that manganese is uh the biggest player here in terms of raising the NAK ratio.
Hmm.
Um, if you're doing a high level of manganese, it can create this sort of toxic effect that can, raise the NAK ratio. But there's a lot of ways you can raise the NAK ratio, but you may be doing it in an inflammatory way
Right.
versus, a more, what I would call a healthier way. So that's something to consider. Um, and and then with manganese, you're also getting into how well it's being incorporated into MNSOD or manganese superoxide dismutase. So so at the same time, and then this goes into NRF2. Um, so if you're taking high levels of manganese, but it's not actually getting incorporated into MNSOD, then you're actually going to get more of the toxic effect from manganese, and it's going to antagonize other minerals more so, like copper, in terms of these mitochondrial pathways or energy pathways. So it's just pretty complicated when you start to do high dose of something, because with Limcamin at 5 milligrams, the original formula, most people take that, I would say, maybe 3 times a day.
Hmm.
um, and then others will do 2 2 2. So that's a lot of manganese consistently. And yes, your body's not absorbing it all. It may absorb your body's not going to come close to absorbing that, not even close. um, so uh, most of it will get removed, but that's only technically, it's only the case if your digestion is on point, your bowel flow is on point, you're having enough bowel movements per day. All that is considered when getting rid of this excess manganese.
Yeah, and I imagine we're more worried about excess manganese than we are excess B6 because it's just harder for your body to get rid of the manganese.
It's actually really easy for your body to get rid of P5P.
Yeah, yeah,
um,
exactly. Whereas manganese, as we
just
know,
eat it.
most people already have manganese toxicity.
It's like, as far as I know, just eat a bunch of carbs, and
Yeah, right.
carbohydrates can deplete B6. Um,
Well, that makes sense. I look forward to trying it. I'm sure it'll work great, just like all the other forms of NAK up. They've all worked good.
yeah, I mean, the goal is, really to make it more tolerable to
Yeah.
these sensitive individuals. Um, but regardless, there's no downside to learning manganese, because your body's not absorbing that much at one time. So even lowering it to 2 milligrams, you're looking at maybe 100% absorption versus 5 milligrams. You may only absorb 2 or 3 milligrams out of that. So the absorption percentage changes dramatically.
Right.
So really, it's negligible in terms of difference.
All right, so let's talk about. Let's see. We talked about BioFlow a little bit. Are there any major changes to the new BioFlow?
Yeah. So the new BioFlow, I'm trying to think how many. So that probably won't be available until like an easy 6 months. But yeah, so BioFlow, we did swap out the estrogen for Astrozyme.
Okay.
So
What's the difference?
Astrozyme still has the estrogen within it. It's just at a lower dose. So it's more. So I like this because someone can take BioFlow more per day without feeling stimulated from the estrogen.
Okay, so it's less
Plus,
ginseng.
yeah,
Okay.
but Astrozyme is technically more suitable, to a digestive aid because with Astrozyme you're getting these proteolytic enzymes, which helps break down protein. So you're getting. So this is why I love it, because slow oxidizers. This is like this supplement is fantastic for slow oxidizers. I would say, just because slow oxidizers, they typically are more protein per day. Um, and so with Astrozyme, you're getting the proteolytic enzymes from that, and you're getting the pancreatin, for protein digestion. So you're getting a double dose of enzymes for breaking down protein, which is essential for any type of healing. Um, and so we did change that, which I'm really excited about. Um, Other stuff like some of the herbs, we lowered the dose by 5 milligrams each. So it was at 30, now it's at 25 for a lot of those herbs, which is not really much of a difference because it's a 4-to-1 extract. So when you see a 4-to-1 extract, that's basically 4 times 25 milligrams. So you're getting actually a 100 milligram dose, um, which is phenomenal because that's like the minimum to see benefits. And say, like, let's artichoke extract, you're looking at 100 milligrams per meal. you know, over a week, you can see a dramatic shift in your digestion. Uh, and we did add the ginseng to it, um, which is a 3-1 extract. So it's the equivalent of 75 milligrams, which ginseng is actually, it helps to stimulate your own production of what's a bitter. So it
Mhm.
helps, well, it can increase appetite. It stimulates the stomach to release its own enzymes, or increases hydrochloric acid, which a lot of oxidizers need.
Mhm.
So with Buffalo Plus, the goal is to provide temporary support or immediate support for breaking down food, but the other herbs, the other compounds help to uh, repair your own ability to increase enzymes. So one client of mine was actually able to work off. They were able to eat meals without needing Buffalo Plus. So eventually, once your digestion improves, you may only need Buffalo Plus on big meals. These smaller meals or something, maybe like a lower protein meal, you may not need it after a while once your body heals more and more. So that's pretty much the goal with anything, is to uh, not need the reliance on something, to where you're not dependent on taking a digestive, enzyme for every meal. Um, you know, well, I mean, it's always going to be beneficial in some ways, but it's not like you're out for dinner and you forgot your digestive, your peel, and now it's like you feel bloated and everything after eating. It's like, I mean, that's the goal, is to get away from that. It's to where
Mhm.
you can eat a meal without digestive issues, but at the same time, if you take a digestive aid, it can increase your ability to absorb nutrients, but it's not going to be like, man, I feel like shit and stuff.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, I would agree that the bioflow is definitely more important for slow oxidizers in general. Part of it is
It's
also, slow oxidizers, as we know, they're more yin and they're cold. And in my
yeah,
experience, the bioflow plus has a heating effect. Um,
yeah,
I don't know what it is specifically. It might be the combination of things, but I would say out of any of the Valence supplements, it's the most heating. The ginseng is heating. That's part of it. Probably ginger is very
yep,
heating.
yep,
Uh,
true. That's why in my experience, it's kind of hard to make a digestive aid for a fast oxidizer without. I mean, it has to be something very simple.
mhm.
Um, it just depends. Like you have different, you know, some fast oxidizers are in better health than others, obviously, to where
Right.
their stomach acid production is different. Just various things are different.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, but then again, some fast oxidizers they still benefit from. They still see a lot of benefit from Buffalo Plus.
Yeah, I usually still give it to fast oxidizers. I just tell them that
Yeah,
if it's too stimulating, they can just skip it in the evening.
yeah, and
So some,
hopefully hopefully the Asherzyme, changes that to where it's not as stimulating, which should be the case because there's only a small amount of estrogen in Asherzyme.
right, right. So it seems to me the Bioflow Plus, it's got its bases pretty well covered in regards to like protein and fat digestion. Do you think there's room for experimentation with maybe adding one or two enzymes that are more for carb breakdown?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, um, yeah, especially if pancreatin is not enough.
Hmm.
Yes, for sure. Because with Astrozyme, it's more focused on protein breakdown
Hmm.
versus carbohydrates. So, that may be something that we try to do in the future. It's just that it just makes it more expensive to
Right.
do.
Right.
Uh, and it's sort of like somewhat mimicking masszymes by optimizers, but keeping the herbs and everything. That would be very expensive. Uh, so it's already expensive as it is to produce.
Yeah.
But I
And
mean, that's definitely, yeah, definitely. I definitely like that idea. It's just, especially if you want to add like certain enzymes that are more focused towards, carbohydrates or even, cheese or dairy products or
mhm,
gluten or something.
mhm.
Um, yes, I mean, ideally I would like to do that. It's just more expensive.
Are those enzymes relatively expensive to produce for manufacturers?
It depends on the quantity that you're buying.
Hmm.
Um, if you have a lot of money, you can buy large amounts at one time. Then that lowers the cost.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, two, it's not that hard to source.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, they're not cheap. I mean, from what I've seen, even lactase is not cheap. Um, I even tried to use certain enzymes that help to break down specific sugars that are found in vegetables that some people have a hard time breaking down. But those can be very expensive too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll see. There's always room in the future. Maybe someone will be able to produce them cheaper in the future,
Yeah,
or
but
you never know.
so far, I mean,
But I think it's already a
I
good
try
product
not
with
to
everything added.
I try not to
Instead of
change things too much because people
Yeah,
already love the ball flow.
yeah, yeah, for sure, and it already works very well. So,
Yeah.
all right, let's talk about the new CalMag Fusion. What are the differences between what are some of the changes to the? What's kind of been your thought process on the iteration of the CalMag Fusions? You go ahead and talk about that. I'll be back in a second.
Okay, so CalMag Fusion, um, the new one won't be out or available. It's probably 6 months, as well. But with CalMag Fusion, we're adding more forms of the calcium. So, we added calcium lysate, um, and what else? I have it right here. So we added the calcium lysate, and we added calcium that's coming from, where is it? Yeah, so it's coming from bone. Um, we don't actually have it listed on the label, so we just have it from the microcrystalline, hydroxyapopsite. So that's where, um, yeah. So that's the calcium just coming from bone, which I'm trying to think. I didn't actually have it. Our new label is going to be a bit better on that.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it's just calcium that's coming from bone. Um, and that's sourced from grass-fed cows. So it's actually that's why we're able to. It's much lower in heavy metals. There's always going to be trace amounts of heavy metals in these supplements. The goal is just to get it as low as possible,
Right.
and we were actually able to decrease our heavy metals by like almost 100%, even though we used calcium from bone. It's grass fed. I'm pretty sure it comes either from Australia or New Zealand, but it's actually MCHA. Um, and then the calcium is the MCHC. But with the on the label, the new label is going to be better. It's going to actually show the MCHA, which is just the entire bone matrix that's extracted, that is put into our CalMag Fusion. Even though it's not showing, it's still in there. It's just that we weren't required to list MCHA or the entire bone matrix, but it is in there. That's the only way that we can use the MC or the calcium from MCHC. But it's still very low in heavy metals, even better. I mean, our CalMag fusions are already very good in terms of heavy metal, levels. It's just we got it even lower now. But the whole point behind that was to, get the cofactors and
Mhm.
the entire bone matrix that assists with, calcium utilization or building bone. So, for example, with MCHA, the phosphorus is actually liberated, uh, or it's actually more bioavailable than, let's say, the MCHC or the calcium. The phosphorus is liberated pretty quickly upon digestion, and so this is where combining it with more bioavailable forms of calcium supports that faster, release of phosphorus from MCHA, which helps to build bone. Basically studies show that it's without enough phosphorus, uh, well, you're not going to build bone very well. And this is why, getting enough phosphorus or just protein in diet and et cetera is important. Um, but yes, I mean, it is necessary to get these cofactors or the entire bone matrix. And that's what we did with the new one. Um, we changed the dose a little bit. So the ratios are going to fluctuate. So for people to understand this, when they see 144 milligrams and 90 milligrams, that is your 1.6 milligram, ratio between calcium and magnesium, right? But the ratios between the different forms of calcium are changing. It's so that's what we're really changing. We're not changing the overall
Right.
ratio of calcium to magnesium. We're really focusing on changing the ratios of each individual calcium chelate in order to create a more balanced effect.
Makes
Um,
sense.
and so this is where, so I'm gonna go into Endomet or other supplement companies that use calcium amino acid chelate, which is, you typically, sometimes you have to ask the company, because when they say calcium amino acid chelate, it could just be bisglycinate, um, or it may be a calcium amino acid chelate from rice protein. Uh, from rice protein. So it's just like a full spectrum of rice protein that's um, used in terms of chelating or creating the calcium chelate, right? It's just how it's done in the lab. So, but most companies don't tell you what the end result is in terms of the different chelates that you end up with. What is the end product? This is why I don't like using amino acid chelates, because even if it's a full spectrum rice protein, just because certain amino acids have higher affinity to calcium. So if you're doing a calcium, or if you're using, like, if you're creating amino acid chelate from rice protein, glutamic acid or aspartate will have a greater percentage, or higher affinity to binding the calcium during that manufacturing process than other amino acids. So it's getting more imbalanced there. You have more of the glutamic acid binding to calcium. You have more of the aspartate binding to calcium than the other amino acids. So this is why it's actually more effective to use each one individually and then just split the ratio. You get a more balanced effect there. So that's the whole reasoning behind adding more or different chelates. So we're somewhat mimicking rice protein chelates, but in a more balanced way. Um, because we're kind of evening out the competition between these amino acids here. Um, so yeah, so that's why we added, for example, we added the calcium lysate, which is very bioavailable. It's around, I'm pretty sure it's around 85%. Um, and and then we added the calcium arginate, which is also, it's definitely above 50%. I'd probably say it is closer to 80% as well. But the MCHC calcium from bone has a lower bioavailability. It has a slower absorption rate, so it doesn't raise the blood calcium levels really quickly. And so this is where it's actually more beneficial for certain people to do a higher ratio of the MCHC to the other chelates, because it's a slower release. It doesn't spike blood calcium levels very quickly as other chelates can, such as calcium malate. You got to be careful with calcium malate. People don't understand. It's like, because it can raise blood calcium levels very quickly and also the calcium malate can actually stay in the blood longer than other forms. Um, but yeah, so you're getting the slower release from the MCHC. You're getting the phosphorus. You're getting these cofactors. You're getting the bone matrix. So it's a very good supplement in terms of building bone, detoxing, and et cetera. It even I've noticed a better brain effect from it. Just because I think it's coming from the calcium arginate. Calcium arginate is I think it's pretty profound. There's a difference between taking an amino acid separately and then taking that same amino acid bound to a mineral. It can have a totally different effect. Just because uh, it's how the two are working together to deliver the mineral and amino acids simultaneously. So calcium arginate may be able to increase or improve blood flow, cerebral blood flow, better than just taking arginine by itself, even though arginine does raise nitric oxide. Um, so you also have that different effect, and this is why I like using different mineral chelates, because they're much stronger than just taking an individual amino acid. Um, but and then we also, with the magnesium, um, that actually stayed the same.
Mhm.
The new one is a bit different. The new one is so I will say this, because this is pretty important. The CalMag Fusion, that is the new one that's coming next, it's actually only 180 capsules. So it is different from the 270 capsules. So that's probably pretty important to clarify here. So one bottle will last you 1 month if you're doing 6 capsules a day. Now, if you're doing 3 capsules a day, that's 2 months. Um, Now we're actually going back to the 270. It's just that we had a little bit of sourcing issue, because some of these new chelates are more expensive, so it raises the price. So we were only able to afford the 180 capsules in this one. Um, which is a 2-month supply, which, on average, most people do not take more than 6 capsules a day, I would say, the average person. So that would still last them a month, not going over 6 capsules a day.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I look forward to trying
And then
it.
the other one is we added the MMST versus the choline stabilized orthosilicic acid. I'm actually a bigger fan of the MMST. It has around 60% absorption. So the absorption is way higher than choline stabilized orthosilicic acid. That one is around like maybe 15 to 20%. This one, MMST, is actually around 60. So it's way more effective, especially and then you're kind of getting into what forms help to detox aluminum better than others, which we won't have to go. We won't get into that. But yeah, I mean, we sent you that. I mean, I don't mind telling people that we sent you a bottle already. But have you had what differences have you noticed?
Like you said, the biggest thing that I've noticed is a little more of like a euphoria, like head feeling.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I've been experiencing. But the mental clarity is it's much better for me in terms of the new one. I don't know what it is, but it is. I do feel like it's a little stimulating for in terms of just waking up the brain a bit.
Yeah, yeah, I do notice more mental clarity for sure.
Because it is going to feel somewhat. That's the thing. What with people that are experiencing brain fog, like you take away that brain fog, now you're going to feel a little more stimulated just because your brain's working better. Um, and that's one thing that people, they may feel more stimulated as the brain fog reduces, just because of that your brain's just functioning better. It's able to process all sorts of emotions, memories more effectively, and so it is going to feel a little more stimulating because that's part of the healing process.
Right.
um,
All right, let's answer some of these questions here. What motility agent is effective if bile flow isn't enough? Well, if you're only taking one capsule, you can always bump it up a little bit. Take a little extra
yeah,
bile flow.
so
Another one is magnesium. You can take extra magnesium as a motility agent.
yeah, because you're looking at to answer that, you're looking at gastric emptying. um,
Right.
but that's sort of like a prokinetic. There's already prokinetics in bile flow. It's just what dose is most effective for you. So for example, artichoke extract, that improves gastric emptying, and it improves gastric motility, or it is somewhat of a prokinetic. Because you're kind of you're kind of improving the smooth muscles during digestion. But that's also why we added ginseng to it. It's a bitter improves the gastric emptying as well. So there might be something like you take Buffalo Plus, you may you can take some ginseng or other bitter that kind of improves gastric emptying or motility.
Harry
And
Madud
that's
asks,
that's really important.
right. He asks, where's Lewis been? Missing him on the channel. Lewis is he's busy with he's just got too much going on. He's busy planning the revolution in his homeland. Let's see here. How old does someone have to be certified? I would say you probably need to be 18 to be certified, but we're running an unlicensed brigade here. We don't play by normal rules. I mean, as far as like my certification with my course, if you're 18 and you know what you're doing, then I see no reason why you can't be certified. Let's see here.
I mean, yeah.
Sorry, what's the silicon form? Does it make sense to take? I got a question for you. What do you say to the calcium haters? There's a lot of people on the interweb say you should only supplement magnesium. You should never supplement calcium. What do you say to those haters?
Well, for one, when you supplement magnesium, you're actually improving calcium channeling. So, it's kind of that's what some people understand. Is like you take magnesium. Magnesium improves um, cellular membrane function. So when you improve that, you actually improve the transportation of calcium into your cells. So someone can have a buildup, or they can have good levels of extracellular calcium. That magnesium that they're taking is actually improving their cell membrane and function, to where now the extracellular calcium can uh, I guess be better transported across cell membranes into the cell. So magnesium can actually in some cases help your body utilize calcium better. So ironically, they're suffering. People are suffering from calcium deficiency symptoms. Um, and so when they take magnesium, they're like, oh, these symptoms go away. In some cases, that's because magnesium is helping your body utilize calcium better, due to cell membrane function and then transportation. But if you get too high of magnesium, this is where you can kind of get into the antagonism. But just the right amount of magnesium will help your body utilize calcium. Especially calcium from the diet and et cetera. Um, but yeah, so it's like you can't hate on calcium when the magnesium that you're taking is actually improving your calcium transportation or utilization. So it's kind of a hypocritical statement, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
yeah,
Also,
but
this is kind of woo woo, not really accepted by science, but I wouldn't be surprised if your body was actually converting some of the magnesium to calcium
yeah, uh,
by
yeah, it's
some
getting a little
mechanism.
more,
By some
it's getting a little
mechanism
more
that we don't.
esoteric.
Right. By some mechanism
Yeah,
we don't actually understand.
and
You
that's plus you're getting into like if you have high hair calcium, people's like, well, why am I taking more calcium? Because high hair calcium isn't really uh, it's not always a true reflection of like whole body calcium. So someone's oxidation with high calcium can have osteoporosis, right? Um,
yeah.
so so how do you correct osteoporosis? By taking better forms of calcium. Um, and plus its cofactors. So it's really about the cofactors assisting the calcium supplementation. And then oxidizers, they typically have low vitamin D levels. Vitamin D is very important for calcium absorption and utilization.
Oh yeah.
So, you have high hair calcium, but you have very low vitamin D. Uh, so, you have these different scenarios that really represent a calcium deficiency on so many levels. Uh, you know, your bone's breaking down. You have low vitamin D, which when you have low vitamin D, you're not absorbing calcium from the diet very well.
Mhm.
Um, and then the low vitamin D is also a representation of poor kidney function. Um, and so kidney function impacts how your body, you know, utilizes or retains calcium. So you have all these factors that are just kind of fucked up to where, you know, it's like we're not, but the only time that I'm a little cautious about calcium, even though someone has calcium deficiency symptoms or just or calcium deficiency, this doesn't mean that you take more and more calcium to correct that. You're playing catch up already because you already have all these other mineral imbalances. So when you have all these other mineral imbalances going on, just taking high dose calcium isn't going to be the answer. Like, you can't rush the process because you may need to correct some other mineral deficiency before your body can actually tolerate or utilize that calcium in the best way possible. Um,
Right. You need
so
to
yeah, it
increase
does.
your sodium potassium levels.
Yeah, so this is where mineral balancing is really just probably the best science out there right now in terms of how minerals interact. Definitely hands down the best science.
100%.
Um,
Not even close.
uh, so, people are taking calcium and vitamin D supplements, calcium, magnesium, vitamin D supplements, but they're not correcting that zinc deficiency or some other mineral deficiency that impacts how your body uses that calcium.
Right. Yep. Okay, so let's talk about. Let's see. So, what are any future supplements that you guys have planned? I know you guys want eventually to release a 4 low supplement for at some point. Let's talk about your
Yeah,
four
so
take on
we
four lows.
are.
You had a little bit of a different take on four lows.
Yeah, I've been working on 4 low supplement for quite some time. It's just too expensive. I can't get the price down. Um,
Yeah.
but but yeah, 4 lows. I do think so. I do have strong opinions about 4 lows. I think that I think it's under supplemented, um,
Mhm.
because I think we all can agree that people in the 4 lows have significant digestive issues to where they're not absorbing nutrients from their diet very well.
Mhm.
And so this may require the need for more mineral or vitamin supplementation, just because they're in such deep burnout that, for one, they don't have the proper energy production and et cetera to break down food, to utilize the nutrients from food. So in some capacity, that can mean that they need more assistance with other vitamins, minerals, and that's where I kind of that's the category I fall into, to where it's all about dose. You can't say that 500 micrograms or 1 milligram of B12 is the same as 1,000 milligrams or something.
Right.
It's not the same. So it's like, why can't you mimic food in some ways through a supplement? And you can do that. And so this is why I do think that 4 lows, they can still benefit from a little bit of B vitamins. You just have to get the dose right. It's the same way with fast oxidation. Because it's like saying that if these people don't need B vitamins, then is it also saying they shouldn't eat foods that are uh, you know that have very good levels of B vitamins? No. Um, so it's kind of hypocritical when you say that. So I'm kind of leaning more towards just supplementing the diet in a way that speeds up the healing process. Because how do you come out of 4 lows because your body still needs quite a bit of energy to do whatever healing it needs to do in 4 lows. Um, so it is dependent on having enough energy. It's just prioritizing that energy in a certain way. Uh, but that doesn't mean that we're not allowed to give it um, more I guess precursors to increasing energy production. And so your B vitamin is very important for energy production or breaking down food. Um, and I do think that they still need certain minerals, because nowadays people in 4 lows, they have chronic infections and et cetera. And so they may still need some selenium to balance out their immune response, to help overcome certain infections, to improve glutathione levels. So it's really, I don't agree with the approach anymore of like avoiding certain minerals because they're seen as being stimulating. I don't see it that way. I see it as a way of supporting the immune response, supporting energy levels to actually heal and come out before lows. Um,
So would you say selenium then is something that you recommend to people in four lows, especially?
uh, with the new NAK up, yes. The new NAK up, which will be out sooner than the others, will have 8 micrograms of selenium, which
Oh,
if
cool.
someone takes that 3 times, well, if someone takes that 3 times a day, and it's a decent amount. It's not like overloading the system. It's just like a trickle effect. And that's where I'm really headed. It's just about that trickle effect that just kind of complements the diet. Um, and it's also about the form. We're using a very good form that helps with detoxification, helps with thyroid activity, et cetera. So it's just a low enough dose to complement the healing process.
Well, what about someone in four lows with a high NAK ratio? Would you recommend they take a little extra, add some selenium to their supplement regimen?
Yeah, I mean this is where
Yeah.
I'm getting into. This is where you're kind of, the NAK up and Zinc Matrix Pro is really just a bridge between the I guess the oxidation rate supplement. So you got fast oxidizer, you got slow oxidizer. Well, NAK up is this kind of that bridge. The Zinc Matrix Pros is that bridge, and so 4 lows is going to need its own, its own mineral pattern package. that does have a little bit of selenium that complements that Zinc Matrix Pro.
Yeah, I think
Because
selenium.
when you start,
I think selenium is probably pretty safe to add to any for lows program.
yeah, and because studies do show that when you combine zinc with selenium, at a certain level, they don't antagonize each other like people with thinking. When you get into mineral antagonism, it's about the dose, it's about the form. Um, so when you combine zinc with selenium and magnesium, it actually helps the body retain more of each one of those versus taking them individually. So it's all about the synergistic effect of how minerals at a certain dose help retain or just improve the absorption of each individual mineral involved. Um, and so, yes, you do have antagonism, but taking zinc can actually help your body, let's say, utilize or basically utilize copper better. So there's not always this direct antagonism that people think. It's all about dose. It's all about context.
Yeah, you guys don't have a selenium supplement, do you?
Now we were going to do it at one time, but we just decided not to. It's not because it wasn't. It was mainly just prioritizing other supplements.
Yeah, it's probably relatively cheap to make one, right? It's just one. I mean,
Yeah,
because
it's
it's
not
just
like.
one.
Mhm.
I know you like that nano selenium.
Yeah,
It's a,
so with
let me
nano selenium,
let me try to
I
find
actually
it.
really I do like it. I just
Oh,
wish that
upgraded selenium. That's the one, right?
yeah,
Here, I'll put it.
yeah. So I got the upgraded zinc one too.
Oh, you got the upgraded zinc too.
Yeah, but it uses the zinc sulfate. So when it comes to these nano compounds, I've actually consulted with. I had a little email exchange with. I had a consultation, video consultation as well, with a nano company and the way they do it. Just trying to understand how they create the nano compounds. But you can pretty much take just about, as far as I know, from my basic interpretation, you can take any form of zinc or, you can take different forms of zinc or selenium and um, just, you know, lower the particle size, reduce the particle size into a um, nano form. And
Mhm.
so uh, that's the only thing. It's like the nano field is kind of new um, to where so I was always skeptical about nano, but
Right.
actually some nano compounds are safer than your other normal particle size, just because of the surface area and how they interact. But it's also about the nanometer size of it. So um, some people suggest getting around the 30 to 50 nanometer size to where it actually penetrates the cells very well. And certain forms are just less toxic. So it's actually pretty safe when you're doing it a certain way. Um, and the lower the nanoparticle size you go, the body doesn't utilize it very well. So it's not always just about getting the lowest nano size possible. No, it's like you have to be within a certain range for the body to actually use it in the best way possible.
Oh, so upgraded formulas does hair. Do they use the same science for their hair test? Do they do what we do? It says they do a hair and mineral
I think
analysis.
I honestly, like, I haven't looked too much into it, but I think they're more of replacement theory.
Uh, blame. That's the thing you got to be
Because they
careful,
don't.
guys. There's so many people. Most people out there don't know how to interpret an HTMA like me and Aaron. Most people out there are
Yeah,
doing something different. They're either doing replacement therapy, which is just like they see zinc is low and they say you should take some more zinc, or they're
yeah,
using uh, the kind of the TEI where they're calculating the oxidation rate a little bit different using calcium and phosphorus.
Yeah.
They don't really
Yeah.
recognize four
Exactly.
loads and stuff,
Yeah,
which is
and then
also
also like certain nano minerals I would not play around with, like calcium. I I'm kind of like I can be proven wrong, but just the idea of taking nano calcium, I'm not gonna fuck with. I'm not gonna play with, just because calcium. Um, your body has like this optimized, like, because calcium is primarily, let's say, extracellular. Magnesium is primarily intracellular. If you want to get like very basic in that way. So
right.
there is a very tight window of intracellular calcium that the body maintains. So um, is it just safer to maybe take more nano magnesium than nano calcium? I would say yes,
Hmm.
just because the cell has a higher, the intracellular compartments have a higher threshold of magnesium versus that calcium. So I'm very, very cautious of doing nano calcium for that reason. Um, uh, because heavy metals disrupt how your body utilizes intracellular calcium. Uh, so it may downregulate uh, copper, not copper, but calcium imported to the mitochondria, and so you end up with an accumulation of cytos or calcium in the intracellular cytosol. So it gets a little.
So these
I don't know. I just want to play around.
right. So these nano versions, they have to be in liquid.
Yes, as
I need
far
to
as I
try
know,
it.
you could
I need to
probably.
I need to try the selenium. You and Matt take it,
I
don't
was
you? Matthew
actually,
Kaufman.
yeah, I
You
was
guys like
actually
it?
trying to do like a. Yeah, I think it works really well. I think it could work better if the form was changed.
Right.
Because it's all about the form of selenium. I would actually do like a nano form of a selenium chelate, like aspartate or glycinate. I would do a nano version of that before I did the nano version that they use. Um,
What version do they use?
I think it's that selenium um, methionine.
I wonder how they even make
Uh,
it nano. Actually, it's not as expensive as I thought it would be. It's not that bad.
so yeah, so they use the selenium methionine.
Right. It might be harder to make nano
Um,
versions of the chelates because doesn't the chelates make it bigger?
as far as I know, they can actually reduce the particle size with just about
Oh, okay.
any compound.
Interesting.
Yeah, as far as I know.
Maybe I'll try that out. Okay. Other questions? Yeah. So I might start adding selenium to four lows protocols now that you mention it. I do think I will say that I think that the bile flow is very helpful for people in four lows. Part of what you're
Yeah.
talking about, like the digestion, but also four lows is a yin cold pattern, the way that helps heat up the body. And I think that the
Hmm.
my intuition is also just like the ginseng and the ginger help people in four lows.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I will say,
Gingers are prokinetic, but like you said, it is a bit yang.
yeah. So I think that really helps people in four lows, the BioFlow Plus. Part of it is I
I
think
would
it
say
helps
that
it
may.
helps fight the infections too, because most people have infections or parasites in their intestines, and the BioFlow will help kill them off.
Yeah, but yeah. So um, that we actually, with the NAK up, are using that methylselenocysteine form, which you find like in broccoli, vegetables like that, and I just like it better um, than the other forms because the body can use it in a certain way. It's more active in certain ways, more bioavailable in certain ways than the selenomethionine.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's talk about one more thing. So you guys are trying to release a ketone supplement, right? What is it called? BHP, ketones.
Yeah. So
So how can that be used with mineral
yeah.
balancing?
So it's recharge, and it has BHB, it has creatine, it has pyridanthine, but it has some minerals and some other amino acids and vitamins. But
Mhm.
it's pretty. It's a low enough dose to where I would say any oxidation rate could benefit. BHB, I think that's universal. I think anybody can utilize BHB, um, whether slow, fast, four lows. I don't care. I think BHB is very. I think it helps anyone.
Mhm.
Um, and then pyridanthine. I think Sloxizers. I think Sloxizers love pyridanthine. I think they do very good on that. Four lows. I don't. It just depends. If it's, I think four lows will still do okay on it because if a fast oxidizer can handle pyridanthine pretty well, then why couldn't a four lows? Um, it just depends on how low maybe that calcium magnesium gets, but it's not the same level of it's not the same stimulant as caffeine. So whenever you ingest caffeine, um, it breaks down into different metabolites, and pyridanthine is one of them. So, but it depends. Like on average, let's say on average, someone may convert 70% of caffeine into pyridanthine, but this conversion rate it's relative, so it can change quite a bit. Um, but pyridanthine, even I can handle pyridanthine very well compared to caffeine. I can't do caffeine that much. I can do a little bit, but not a lot. Pyridanthine, shoot, I can take 600 milligrams of pyridanthine and be all right.
Mhm.
If I did that much, if I did that much of like caffeine, yeah, it would be a bad day. Um, but yeah, pyridanthine is a little more, definitely more tolerable. And we're using around 100 to 200 milligrams. We haven't settled on that yet. We're still sampling it. We're waiting on the sample. So, um, we're going to see what dose is good enough. But regardless, even if we increase to 200 milligrams, that's kind of like the sweet spot that's been shown in studies, that almost anyone can tolerate very well. Um,
So
and
what is the main thing you're trying to accomplish with this recharge supplement? Is it like an energy supplement that you would take more in the morning, or
yeah, so it is an energy supplement.
Mhm.
Uh, which is the basis of any program. I don't think there's no program out there that doesn't look at increasing energy, improving energy levels.
Right,
Because even fast oxidizers, they're in burnout in some way.
right.
Um, it's just that they have like it's that wired energy level, which is not, it feels like so. In some ways, it could be similar to like maybe a caffeine effect for a fast oxidizer, where they're just feeling wired. They're not. It's not that soothing energy, and that's what we're really aiming for in terms of the BHB. It's just a soothing energy, kick. It's not. I mean, it's just like something that when you have basically when you have a soothing energy kick, it just makes you feel good versus like if you're taking a lot of caffeine, it's some people are very stimulated, so it's not a good energy feel. It's just very stimulating, a wired feeling. That's not what we're going for. We're going for just that soothing energy effect that just makes you feel good. Makes you want to do shit without feeling stimulated, overstimulated or something. Um, you
So
know,
the BHP,
and
is that related to ketones?
yeah, so it is a ketone.
Will it
Um,
help? So it'll help trigger ketosis then?
Ideally, yeah.
Mhm.
Um, it's you can actually well, yeah. I mean, so your body can use the ketones without having to technically be in a ketone state. So it's not. I don't really see it as the same way as going into ketosis. because that requires a certain bodily state, versus if you're actually taking ketones, your body can actually use ketones without technically having to be in that ketogenic state where you're eating, like, let's say, very low carbohydrates or something. So it's kind of a shortcut, but at the same time, you can still benefit from the ketones, the BHB, and still eat whatever carbohydrates you eat. You may not feel compelled to eat as many carbohydrates, but I don't think it's going to negate the benefits of the BHB ketones, because your body can actually use, depending on its metabolic flexibility, you can use both at the same time. And that's where some people get into that dual energy, where your body is using ketones and carbohydrates at the same time.
Right.
So your body can actually have that metabolic flexibility. So this is why I'm saying, it's like, you don't have to eat a low carb diet or low sugar diet in order to benefit from taking BHB, or taking a BHB supplement. Now the goal is to help you reduce the carbohydrate sugar or consumption. That's gonna be great. Especially with sugar. You want to reduce sugar consumption as much as possible, in certain cases. But yeah, so it kind of just, um, it's kind of like a placeholder too, because some people are unable to technically metabolize carbohydrates or sugars very well. Even if we tell, like, soul oxidizers to eat a little more carbohydrates, they still may not be able to metabolize or utilize them very well. And this is why soul oxidizers that do a ketogenic diet or ketosis, they can actually lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
They can lose weight. So it's yeah, it gets. But yeah, I mean, the recharge is definitely, I think, in my opinion, compatible with any oxidation rate. Um,
So would you recommend?
because
How do you
you're
recommend using it? Like once in the morning on an empty stomach, or how would you
I
recommend
mean,
using
that's where there's flexibility there, to where, you know you can obviously do it in the morning. you know I tell people to be kind of cautious on an empty stomach, just because, um, some people just have very sensitive stomachs, so they have to eat something before, or they have to do something before, kind of, preparing their stomach to be able to handle
it? Right.
something like a supplement, or food or something like that. People just have,
Right.
but I mean, it doesn't matter when you take it, and I do think that ideally, yeah, I mean, I think breakfast is a very important meal. Um, so it might be something that you do, like, in between breakfast and lunch. Um, but you can
That
obviously
makes
take
sense.
it with breakfast. There's not gonna be some,
Yeah, between breakfast and
but
lunch, that makes sense.
I wouldn't do it before breakfast, because it might prevent you from eating breakfast. And
Right.
I don't really think that's ideal, because I think breakfast is pretty important.
Okay, that makes sense. That's cool. Yeah, I look forward to. So when is the recharge going to be released? That's still
Probably
probably
sometime
6 months
next year.
away, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be something sometime next year. But
Yeah, probably at least 6 months.
yeah, because we're still waiting on a sample. But we're gonna be at, you're gonna be there too. But we're gonna be at the Hack Your Health convention. So anyone that's going, or lives in Florida and wants to go, or just wants to go in general, wherever you are, you can come check out our booth. Um,
Yeah, if you're in
and
Florida,
so we're gonna be.
come check out Heck Your Health.
I,
I'll be there. I'm flying to Florida.
I, I mean, some people in California are still gonna fly into Florida for the convention, so you never know. um, I think,
Flying to Florida is cheap.
but yeah, I
I got a
mean,
round trip. My round trip ticket. So tickets both ways. The total was like 240,
yeah, it's not bad. I mean,
like 240
I think I think
bucks.
that maybe the only, I think that maybe the only people doing that are obviously just they're really into health and biohacking or something.
Right.
Um,
Right.
But yeah, I mean, if you live in Florida and you have an easy drive there, then yeah, because you know the tickets. I think the tickets are around. I don't know. I mean, they're not that bad, but they. It's not like they're $50, but you know, I think they're closer to like a 200 or something. That might be like a basic package, maybe 100. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. The plane ticket was cheaper than the ticket to get into the conference. So
Yeah. So, but
it's not
and
just
then you have to consider hotel. So it's not a cheap. And then you got to consider food. So, you know, you're probably putting aside maybe $1,000 if you flying in, getting a hotel, going to it, eating. but,
all right, man. Well, that's about it. Let's
but
see if we have any questions. That's a good question. Well, it's not really valence related. Okay. If one stays on a program long enough and recognizes when they flip between fast and slow oxidation, can they adjust supplements on their own? That's up to you. You know, part of mineral balancing is us practitioners, like we're trying to help guide you, but up to at the end of the day, like it is up to you. I can tell you that, like me personally, I do adjust my supplements sometimes. Like I'm pretty good at telling when my NAK flips. Like Lewis I know is the same way. Like a lot of us, like practitioners that have been on the program or people that have been on the program for a long time, you can kind of tell when you like flip either your NAK ratio or your oxidation rate. And you might want, if you're working with a practitioner, you might want to reach out to them before you do it. But yeah, a lot of times, honestly, you can tell when you flip.
yeah, I think the NAK ratio is probably the easiest,
Yeah.
the most
To
immediate
tell.
kind of to you know, easiest to tell.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's about it. Thank you, Aaron, for coming on.
Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, maybe next time we'll pick like one more. We'll pick like one specific topic and just go super deep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really, I guess, maybe the only way to do it because otherwise you might have like a 3 hour, you know, talk.
Yeah, we can pick like
And even
one.
then, I got to be on. I started using a nicotine patch. Man, I'm actually sold on the. I like the
Yeah.
nicotine patch, and I do the. Yeah, because with the nicotine patch, man, I tell people, you know, you can cut it in half. So, or you can cut it just however much. You might like if
Right.
you cut it in 1/3, you're gonna have to tape it maybe, but cut it in
Mhm.
half. You get the smallest. You get a 7 milligram patch. Cut it in half. That's 3.5, and that's released over 24 hours. So it's way more tolerable than just doing 2 milligrams right away, 4 milligrams right away through a lozenge or something. Um, but dude, I don't know, man. There's a lot of good stuff on nicotine in terms of uh, you know, even for autism, man, it's like some research on nicotine for autism. It's like some people on Reddit, they're like, man, I started doing nicotine and it solved my autism symptoms because
Yeah.
it helps with memory, focus, ADHD. So
Right.
um, it's
Yeah.
like
I
you on
mean,
nicotine, man, you like a supercomputer.
yeah. Yeah, I can't really do like I tried those pouches you sent me.
Yeah,
I couldn't do it. They make me want to throw
yeah,
up.
that really, yeah, just that's why I like the patches because of how it you know, I don't like how it affects the vagus nerve whenever you put it in your mouth. Like some people can tolerate it very, very well, but you know, I like the patches because it's transdermal and it doesn't affect like the stomach or the vagus nerve or your nerves in right, you know, the same way. It's more of a kind of a gradual effect. But the thing I like about the patches is that it's over 24 hours and you can cut it to the point where you're just doing 1 milligram throughout the entire. But you know, the nicotine, just a real quick, the nicotine it helps to stimulate these nicotinic acetylcholine receptors, which you know, if people have long COVID or something, it kind of down regulates the nicotinic
Mhm.
or it blocks. or binds to the nicotinic acetylcholine receptors. And so nicotine actually comes in and kind of reverses that. But nicotine is actually anti-inflammatory because it stimulates those nicotinic acetylcholine receptors that are actually on your immune cells. So it increases that anti-inflammatory profile, and that's one reason why it can be helpful for autism, because autism is usually a inflammatory response with the immune cells, and so nicotine comes in here at the right dose, activates that anti-inflammatory response. But you just have to do the right dose. You have to do the dose that you tolerate, and then you can maybe work up if you need to. But yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, it is one of those that I think
my intuition is that nicotine is pretty similar to caffeine. Like
yeah,
you can improve
yeah,
ADD. You can improve ADD symptoms with caffeine pills as well.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I just like some of the effects that nicotine has on immune cells versus caffeine. So if you do the right amount of nicotine, you can actually benefit your immune cells in a certain way that caffeine really doesn't do. Um, and that's one aspect I like about nicotine, is that inflammatory response on your immune cells. And believe it or not, some people may be able to tolerate the program better when that happens because they have chronic infections, they have heavy metal toxicity, et cetera. That's creating that pro-inflammatory response within your immune cells.
the loggers are here. I gotta go deal with the. They're here to
All right,
take the
man. I'll let you
logs.
go.
All right, man. Well, it's nice chatting. Yeah, maybe next time we'll do a deep
All right,
dive,
dude.
and then yeah, thank you for everyone that asked questions, and yeah.